thing.
Recording. We're live now, or not? We're live. We're on the podcast. So we were chatting before the podcast, but I've got the podcast going with Amy Fazler, and right, that's right. That's how I pronounced it, right? And Fansler, right?
It's a hard one, yeah. And
Right.
I have another name added to that, Milas. So you can call me one or the other, or both.
And I originally wanted to get you here for the podcast, but here we are with the COVID-19 situation, and we can't. That's not an option right now. So, but Amy does Circus now. Like when I saw this on social media, first off, the pictures and stuff super cool. It's kids that you're teaching this to,
right?
Right. So, like, my daughter was a gymnast.
Mm-hmm.
You were a gymnast, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, any girl that's your size that's going to be an athlete, I think that's the normal path, right? Be a gymnast.
Right.
So, anyways, is it insulting to say that you teach acrobatics?
Oh, that would be fine. That's definitely in the category. Yep.
Okay. All right. Because what it looks like you teach is like trapeze stuff.
Yep.
And what's the thing with the cloths? Like it's like looks like
that came about after so at ISU where I went to college, they have a collegiate circus, and that's where I learned a lot of the meat of my step.
Okay.
And we didn't have that there, but they have it now. It's very acrobatic. It's called aerial silks, and it's literally just yards and yards and yards of fabric. And it could be guys or gals. We have one little guy right now, and mostly gals.
Sure. And
you use the fabric to wrap your feet and your hands, and to do acrobatic tricks in the air, which we call aerials.
Okay.
Yeah, but anything that's suspended from the ceiling is considered an aerial event, and there's many, many things. Trapeze is one of them.
Okay, so it looks very Circus Soleil.
Yes.
Sort of thing. It looks artsy, not carnival-y.
Right. We try to go for that, but little carnival's not too bad.
Hey, you're right. Whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I know that like my in-laws, or like somebody on my ex-wife's side of the family said something to my daughter about being an acrobat, and she was like, looked at them like they were crazy because she's a gymnast.
So traditionally in the last couple decades, a gymnast, all around gymnasts, which some are just tumblers, but if you're an all around gymnast, you do floor, vault, beam, and bars. And it's very disciplined. So maybe an acrobat would be like a downplay or an insult, because acrobats kind of, when they started, was just on the floor, but it's really the same thing. Okay. So a trained gymnast might feel a little well, I'm more than that, which is fine. It's all okay. Yeah. But really, it's all the same thing. Like, you're using your body, using your agility, your flexibility, your strength, and your balance to do whatever you do. And so to me, it all comes together, but I totally get at moments you might be offended if your daughter, if she's a traditional gymnast or tumbler, she might be or she's too young to even know what that term means.
That was probably it. Right. She was probably too young. So, okay. So you did this in college.
Right. So in high school, I was a gymnast, and I was a private competitive gymnast before high school. And I get to high school, and you want to do something in high school. So where I am, very rural Illinois, these schools don't have a gymnastics team. I don't know if Lincoln Way still does or not.
Lincoln Way's team is co-op for the 3 schools.
Okay.
So it's one team.
It's not super common as you get rural, probably for a lot of obvious reasons.
I would think
so. For me, I left private club to do high school gymnastics because I want to be like everybody else. You want to be in the wrestling team, you want to be in the football team, you want to be part of your high school.
Yep.
So a lot of really serious gymnasts stayed in private club because you could accelerate farther. Anyway, it didn't matter because I was a very mediocre gymnast, which is fine.
Yep.
It's fine. I loved it. It was great. And then my senior year, I was talking to our athletic director at the time, which you may remember him. I have struggled with his name. His son was older than us. His son was Tim something or other, and I think he was a wrestler.
I don't know.
So I'm going to pick your brain a little bit. So this
Okay.
fella, he taught history, which many athletic directors do. And I don't know, I must have had a class with him. Somehow he pulled me in his office and he said, I heard you're going to Illinois State, which a lot of our graduating class did. And he said, at Illinois State, they have like a collegiate circus, and I need you to check it out. And I was like, what are you talking about? So his son, he was a male gymnast and a wrestler, I think, real strong and built, but not real tall, had gone on that same path, and he wanted me to check it out. I really just didn't think anything of it. So I went off to college, and I'm in the dorm having lunch, and there was like a little table tent ad which said, like, come check out our circus. And I was like, okay. So anyway, I did, and it changed my whole path. So it's Illinois State and Florida State are the only two collegiate circuses at this time in the U.S. There's two.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the one at Illinois State's been going since 1939. And I think the one in Florida might even be older. Anyway, it started with all men. They were gymnasts, and they were acrobats or competitive gymnasts, and they started like performing. And it grew and grew and grew. So anyway, by the time I got there, it was decades old. And they taught me anything I wanted to learn, like trapeze, teeterboard, like just roller skating tricks, like crazy stuff.
Wow.
And so if you're a mediocre gymnast and you're about this big,
yep,
like go for it. And so like it was fabulous. So I shined there, and it was great.
It's so weird that only those two colleges still. So
right.
ISU and then FSU.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most parents, if they're involved, or kids that are paying their own way that send themselves to college, aren't trying to go spend money and get a 4-year degree to do something that most people do without even a high school education, when you think about it.
Right.
So most
right.
professional circus families, a lot of times they don't even go to school, they homeschool. And they travel because they're traveling all the time. So it's kind of a weird mix. So anyway, I did it, and my parents were like, you're still going to graduate and get a degree, right? So I did, but like that was just a special thing for me. I don't know, I loved it, and it was in the back of my mind.
So did you ever do it? Did you ever travel and do it like with a circus?
A little bit. So when we were in college, there was a director that was a musician. He's passed away now, but he was a musician. He was people have a weird combination of talents, which I'm one of those. So he was a musician and a Methodist minister on the East Coast in Pennsylvania. And I don't know how it happened, but a couple decades before that, Ringling Brothers and all the traveling shows, they didn't use pre-recorded music. They had like bands, swing band, where they sit and they have a little cardboard thing in front of them, and they're blowing their So that was dying out, and Ringling was starting to use canned music, which is what we call like, pre-recorded music.
Yeah, right.
And he wanted to keep that like John Philip Sousa stuff alive. So his goal was really like, circus is still going, but I need to keep the live music alive. So he started this weird thing where I don't know what his background was, but he would like gather college kids from music departments and the two FSU and ISU acrobats. And like he would just say, hey, I'll pay you a couple $100 a week, and you travel with me on your spring break, your Christmas break, your summer break, whatever. And we would travel the East Coast. So that was when we got to do a little bit of like professional. We literally would sleep on the floor of churches and high schools, wherever they put us up. We'd get $200 a week. And we were just performing. Of course, we thought it was the greatest thing ever. We got to
I'm sure. Right. There's such a small slice of people that actually get to do something performance-based. So It had to be awesome. It had to be, what did you get your degree in?
So my degree was in fashion and costume design.
Nice.
Yeah, which was weird. And I used it, and I still use it now. But at that time, so I was in charge of costuming for several years for the circus at Illinois State. And then that helped me get my little traveling gig, because I could perform. You always had to have more than one job.
Sure.
So I'd perform, and then I'd be in charge of costumes, which I loved, I really loved.
My mom did costumes for Drury Lane Theater when I was a kid. Right. So, I mean, she sewed all kinds of stuff. If it was up to her, she would have sewed my clothes in school, but we weren't going to let her do that. So I mean, that's interesting. It's super. It still blows my mind that only 2 schools in the entire country. The people that don't get the formal college education for doing circus,
Right.
is there a different level? Are they,
It's
like,
mostly like you're either born into it
yeah,
and you're kind of a, I don't mean derogatory, but a carny where like your family, that's what your family did when you were born. That's what
right,
you're gonna do. You were raised to do however, whatever your talent was, whether it was that, and usually they do more than one thing.
yeah,
They do the books and they do the teeter board.
yeah,
And but that's dying out because Ringling Brother just closed, I think, last year.
sure.
So I think as um, media progresses, live anything is starting to die out. And
Right.
so,
The overhead for a circus has got to be insane with the animals and
and they took out, you can't do elephants anymore. So it's
right.
starting to die. It's starting to die off. So at this point, it'll probably be just like social type circuses that keep it going. But
So is there a competitive circuit for the kids that they do this stuff, or is it just
uh,
show?
so for us, it's mostly just what we would call like a social circus where and it works really well in a rural community because there's not a lot else to do. And so we work a couple times a week and we train and then we perform. We were supposed to do a big show this weekend. It was our big show for the year. So we're a little bit mourning the loss of that. And then we usually do one at Christmas and we started one in the fall. So we try to perform for the community. We always make our shows free and then we just ask for donations. We give free popcorn and people love a free show and they're willing to like buy cotton candy and they spend their money elsewhere so everyone has a good time and we still have enough to stay funded.
Right. I didn't mean to phrase it like that either, like just a show. It's great that it's a show. I didn't, know if there was people that were competing or something like that, or there were
Right.
judges or
So a lot of my I would say maybe 1/4 to a half of my participants are also gymnasts. In the YMCA, we have a gymnastics gym and they
sure.
compete, and my girls are part of that. So those girls are used to like training and being judged and getting a score. So
Okay.
it's different when you're just performing for an audience. It's
Right.
got benefits and losses. So last year, around this time, we heard of a competitive aerial arts kind of a funky thing. And we're like, oh, that's right up our alley. So we jumped on that. We went last August and it was cool. Like we did really well. But in the end, there was this tragic accident where we, like, in real time, watched a girl like plummet to what I thought was her death without a mat. She
Oh,
ended up surviving. And I couldn't get over that. I think, for one, just everyone left the theater crying and hyperventilating.
yeah.
But also, for me, I had a group of 12 kids there, some of which are my offspring, some weren't, and I was responsible for them. And I've always been really like aware of the danger because some of the stuff we do is like 24 feet in the air. I
Yeah.
would never do it without a mat, but that was an option at this venue. And so I left saying, like, in good conscience, I can't go back. So my youngest is 16 and she really wants to go back. And I just said, it's weird. Like, we're from a competitive background, so we miss that. But if you're not in control of the safety and what's really important, so I don't know. We're not going back there. So we may stick with performance where we're in control of the safety and the audience is always just going to love you. If you mess up, like, not catastrophic, but if you fail on your trick, what I learned in experience is the audience is with you. So you stumble and you don't do well and you pick your head back up and you ask audience for one more try. If you nail that again, they go crazy.
Nice.
Like they're with you, you
Sure.
know?
Sure. I
Yeah.
I only fell 13 feet or something like that. I mean, 24. Oh my gosh. Like,
And as you know, with my background, I'm watching it. So for what felt like an eternity, which is probably a matter of seconds, nobody approached the stage. And I didn't work there. I literally was just there with 12 performers, and I was the first one at the stage because I just like, well, you got to go there. Well, you got to
yeah.
solve this problem. Inevitably, some staff showed up, and I'm not sure how what their background was, but I kind of took a back seat. But like, just your instinct, like this is a serious situation.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
get
So
PTSD
I
from that.
struggle. And my middle child, which is my oldest daughter, sustained a brain injury in cheerleading 3 years ago. And she has a traumatic brain injury. She's pretty high functioning and really amazing, but she has post-concussion syndrome. And at this point, we're pretty sure it's there for good.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so that is not something that happened in my program, but that could happen in my program. So
Sure.
there's not a day that goes by where I'm not like thinking about it, losing sleep, scanning the gym, like, because if that was on me, I'd rather it be me than be on, you know.
Yeah, no, I know, right? We had a scare when my ex-wife was pregnant with my two sons, which are twins.
Mm.
We failed a fetal protein test, and when we failed it, they didn't tell us that the number one reason for failing that is twins. They told us that it's, spinal bifida or like
Oh,
some terrible thing. And then we had to wait 10 days to get
yeah.
a 3D ultrasound. Oh, I'm the boss at work. I was a tyrant for 10 days because I got this thing going on. And I mean, I'm not a religious person, but I was like, make it me, not the kid, because this is terrible.
Yes.
So yeah, no, no, I would never trade any of that stuff, with my kids as far as,
Right.
that goes. But it had to be traumatic for you because it was one of your performers that fell. Or no?
So it wasn't. No, it
Oh,
wasn't.
good.
No,
Okay, all right.
no.
Not
And
that that
if
makes
it
it any really different, but
Right. And if it had been, so when you signed in at this place, which I feel was a little sketchy anyway, you could opt out of the mat at all. And so of course I had an argument with my 16-year-old because she's very talented and she wanted
yeah,
to win. And she was like, I don't need a mat. And I was like, your sister has a traumatic brain injury. You will have a mat,
right.
you know. So I like to get on my high horse and say it couldn't have happened to one of mine because I insisted they had a map, but it can happen with a map.
Yeah.
So
Now, what they do a different points multiplier or something if you take the mat away?
no, it was literally just an artistic choice
Oh,
because
good
it
God.
looked
Well, who would
it
make that choice?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
insanity for
yeah.
nothing.
But I think some people that either haven't been through what you're through or don't work in the field, there's just,
Yeah, no.
yeah. So, but honestly, even with a 4 inch and then another 2 inch, things can still happen. So after that, we've revamped everything just from watching this traumatic event. And so we already tried to err on being conservative, but we've started like protocol and binders of like tricks that we'll outlaw. I mean, the poor girl, the trick was called the kamikaze. So already
Yeah,
no.
no, right.
But there were tricks that we had to reevaluate that if they were done, wrong or had a slip could end poorly. So we're trying to get rid of all that because it's just they're your kids. It's not
How's
worth
insurance for that sort of thing?
it's hard. They almost closed us down a couple years ago.
Yeah,
But the reality, and I have a backup from this, it's an American corporation that supports small circuses across America. And they have lawyers and all their research, and it's pretty legit. When you think about it, like we let our kids go to school over pea gravel and do like tricks on the bar with no mat.
yeah, right.
And some of the stuff that I have my beginners on are just probably 4 feet off the ground with mats. So I feel like if I'm using the proper mats and I'm controlling what tricks are not allowed and I have a teacher there, they're probably safer than they are on the playground.
Sure,
But
right.
at the same time, not being oblivious to something catastrophic.
No, I
So
mean, right.
it's a balance.
Right. My accident, I had been doing that exact same thing for 13 years at the time. Like it was just a normal day. It just things collapsed, and that's just the way it went. Just those you can't prevent every accident.
Right.
Anyway,
But
so
that's so true. But at the same time, like don't put yourself or someone else's child in danger
no,
when you don't
for
need to. But
sure.
it's hard. It's like you gotta live, but you have to be careful. So I'm like this constant person of like, I'm super conservative and careful, but like I really think the circus is cool. So how can we
Yeah, right,
It's
right.
crazy. It's
The
crazy.
danger aspect is part of what makes it cool too. So, right, that's tough. Now, if you don't, do you mind me asking the question or two about your daughter with the brain injury?
Great.
Is it okay if I ask some questions?
Yeah.
Like you said, she's high functioning.
Right.
So, like, I had a mom on the podcast whose son was autistic. He was on the spectrum, but he was like nonverbal. Like
Right.
that was a very tough thing to wrap my brain around, that you have a child that you can never speak to,
Right.
and you can never, because he doesn't say any words.
Yeah.
He throws like kind of fits and stuff if he's not doesn't get what he wants, sort of thing.
Right.
But he's got a thing like a iPad that he can like point to things that he wants and then lets his mom know. But like, yeah, he'll never talk. All the dreams and aspirations you have for that kid
Right.
are different than she has another son who's like an athlete and all that other stuff.
It's hard.
Yes, it's super hard.
So Jess, her name's at the bottom of my screen here.
Yeah,
She
okay.
came in when I couldn't get this to work. She came in and fixed it for me. So
So she's right.
yeah.
Okay.
But for Jess, it's things like if she popped in the screen. So she is 20/20 vision, but she wears glasses every moment she's awake because they have to have a tint, which is almost as dark as sunglasses because
Okay.
light sets her off. She
Got it.
has prisms in her glasses because her eyes no longer communicate. So if she has them off, her left eye drifts off to the side.
Okay.
I bought her second pair of Bose noise canceling ear pods because
Sure.
so your vestibular system is hearing and vision and balance together.
Yeah.
So she has to wear them like almost all the time because if it's too loud, it'll set her off. She can't go to the movie theater. She went to see Beauty and the Beast a couple years ago when it first came out, and she was sick for like 2 to 3 days in her room with all
Oh
the lights.
no.
So like we're not autistic and we can talk and read and write, and she started college this year and she's amazing. She's a very strong person, but
Good. Good. Good.
every day is a battle, and you can relate to that because
Yeah.
especially when you didn't have that before. I don't know what's worse. Personally, I'm not in that situation.
No. Right. 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 I definitely see the little guys or kids and stuff that are born a certain way. They have a better way of adapting than
They've
people that.
always been that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the only way they know.
So Jess is studying to be a social worker and a school counselor, and I think it's perfect for her. Her personality was that way anyway, but she has a really a lot of patience for just anyone that has any disability across the board, which she already was like that. That's just her.
Yeah.
Um, just super duper strong person. But reading and writing makes her sick, and she's in college, so that's fun.
Yeah. No. No.
And then she probably should only go to school and then rest, but she was a gymnast and a cheerleader, and so she longs for that.
Yeah.
So she is one of my assistant directors for my program, and honestly I don't know how I do it without her. Every day I tell her, if you need to back out because your symptoms are making you sick, I'll be fine, but it wouldn't be fun.
Mhm.
No, but so she will make herself sick for a day or so to help produce what we're doing at Circus because she loves it, and that's her choice. She had to give up gymnastics and cheerleading because she can't turn and rotate or go upside down without being sick for days.
Oh my
But on
gosh.
her feet, she's good. So she can like spot people, and she's very good with kinesiology. So she can describe to them like you would with wrestling. Like you maybe can't do it anymore, but you can tell them what they need to do.
Right. 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 No, that's
And
so
that's a gift.
right. I think teaching is a gift. I think that we should. I know a lot of people become teachers, but I think they become teachers because this didn't work out or that didn't work out, and then they become a
Mm-hmm.
teacher. Where I think that there's people that can teach and there's people that can't teach. They're terrible.
Right.
I had some
Right.
bad teachers in school, but
Right.
so when I coach, the wrestling club is split into 3 groups, and I wouldn't mind coaching the little tiniest guys, but they're not so great at taking verbal commands. So I
Right.
pretty much stick in the middle group of
Right.
guys. So it's like 8 to 11 years old. They can listen to the words I'm saying. They can, do that sort of thing that
Yeah,
way.
and follow it.
And then, yeah, I make a point of trying to explain more about like, why are you doing it this way? And like, try and get cerebral responses from them. And
Right.
then I coach to an objective. So it's not like I just don't demonstrate because I can't demonstrate
Right.
something. So, we have people that do that part, and then I work on them like mentally. And as a coach that's coaching Matt's side, I can't go out there and move them anyway. They have to
Right.
listen to the words out of my mouth at some point.
Right.
So
And there's
that's
a big advantage there because they have to stop
right.
and think.
Right. So, and my sons have been doing it since kindergarten, and they're set to go off to school this coming fall, but now we don't know because of this COVID-19 situation. It's possible they'll just take a lag year so their plan is to go D3. And the reason is they've talked to many D1 and D2 athletes, and the coaches hold the purse strings to the scholarships. So they own you. Like, you can't do anything outside of what they want you to do.
Right.
Where D3, it's more, it's up to you. You could quit wrestling and still be going to school because you're paying for it anyway.
Right.
So, and then the D3 setup, like out of a $55,000 a year education, they're paying for like 10 or 11 of it. So they're fine with that trade-off and not having to deal with the fact that they're slaves, sort of a situation.
Right.
So.
Right. And they need they need not to have that restricted stress. Like, you can't go out past 10 p.m.
Right. Well, they better do that kind of stuff on their own if they want to be competitive. But you could, if you decided as a sophomore, you decided sophomore year to quit wrestling, then you could do that and it's not going to affect your education.
Right.
So, then that's fine. I mean, the education's always been the important part to me anyway. I wanted them to have something to identify themselves as. So, they've been a wrestler since they were in kindergarten, and they played baseball and they played other sports.
Right.
But with it being D3 and the money being structured that way, it makes no sense for them to sit home and take online courses for a year, lose a year of eligibility to wrestle. They might as well take a year off, work construction for the year, make $35,000 for the year.
Stay strong.
Right, stay super strong, and then go back when they can wrestle. Because in D3, you're not going to take a fifth year because you got eligibility, because you got to pay for school for the fifth year.
Right.
So, so we don't know yet what's going to go on. They're deciding what schools and everything else, but yeah, it may be a situation where they're off for a full year, which will be really strange because they totally plan to be, in college.
They probably won't be the only ones.
No, right. I would think that a lot of athletes, especially D3, would take the year off and not do it. But so that for us, it's a terrible situation that there was no NCAA tournament this year.
Oh, it's crazy. Everything's over. Everything's on hold.
Right. Well, today the press conference in the afternoon was the phases to start opening things back up again. I can't quite wrap my brain around how you're going to do some of that. They're talking about like getting back to a situation where there's full stadiums and stuff like that. What kind of crowd were you drawing when you were doing your circus show? What kind of crowd is there? A couple hundred people?
Right. So we do live in a small town. Western Illinois University brings our population up to like 20,000.
Sure.
So without them, you can imagine we're pretty small.
Right.
But we usually bring between 300 and 400 people to a show, which for me is pretty packed the house, standing room only. Yeah. It helps. There's not a lot else to do. It helps that there were some years ahead up to 50 kids involved. So you think you got their parents and grandparents and friends. And then we're trying to become a little bit of a household name. Next year will be our 10th year. It'll be our decade anniversary. So it's kind of like and Circus is very spring oriented. So back in the day when circuses wintered in Florida, because they had to train and they had to train outside where it was warm. And then they would travel back up, the East Coast or the West Coast or wherever to perform in the spring. They can't do that when it's snowing, right? So we always try to have our show in the spring, which would have been this weekend. So it becomes annual. we have popcorn and we play the music, and it's just very
Yeah.
festive.
I can't imagine you missing it is
It's
it's gotta be
sad.
it's gotta be a really big deal as far as that goes. It's also so I grew up in the Frankfurt New Lenox area,
Hmm.
growing up. But then my mom and dad got divorced, and my mom moved south of Kankakee. So I spent some time down there with my
Hmm.
mom, did a bunch of construction work at her house and all kinds of stuff like that. Made friends with some people that were down in that area, and went out drinking as I did up north and everything else. Those kids in those rural areas, they are got to be dependent on you for something to do because
Right,
they they it was you would think growing up that the bad element is in the city and then the
right,
country's clean, and it's the
right.
opposite.
It's kind of a
Always,
weird balance, right? So
yes.
you have your farm families, and those kids are in shape and they're very busy and hardworking. Then you have some that are kind of lost in the mix without a lot to do. My kids in town that are very sports oriented, they're interested in my program, but it's hard for me to keep the continuity because they get drawn to softball and baseball and football, which is fine.
Yeah.
And I think this is the way Circus started. I do tend to attract a whole like misfit kind of population, which is for me it's fine.
Yeah.
A bit of a misfit, but kids that like, and especially nowadays, because I think when you and I were in school, there either was less AD and ADHD and all that, or we just weren't diagnosed.
I think it was diagnosed, yeah. Because I would
Because
say
I'm
I
probably
definitely.
on the
Right.
spectrum right here.
Yeah.
So I get all those kids, like they tried football and baseball and t-ball, but like their coaches couldn't handle them, so they couldn't like in a line and follow directions. So I get them, which is fine because I love kids and I can handle it. And my
Yeah.
my daughter I was talking about, who like her head hurts when it's loud, but this girl can handle any child. So we just take them in, and like it's a crazy place. Like you come in, we all set up. We have an empty gym and a huge space at the Y, and we have this closet, and we all go in there and we pull out everything you can imagine. And I have it on like a slow mo video. We're like, this is what we do every Friday. We pull out everything out of this closet, like tightrope, stilt walking, trapezes, juggling, costumes, and it's like it explodes. Then we have like 2 hours of fun, and we clean it up together. And some of them try to like weasel out and not help, and I'm like,
Right. Right.
yeah. And then we become like a bit of a misfit family, and it's just pretty cool.
It is. So I've seen different, carnivals and fairs and stuff with a stilt walker, and
Mhm.
I've seen festivals that there'd be someone walking by in stilts or parades.
Right.
Has anybody like? It's got to be a certain age group that you're doing, right? So like they're
So I don't have a lot of age limits. I tried to start with age 7, and then I had a lot of families that had some younger ones that really, really wanted to come, and I have a soft heart, so I'd be like, all right, I'll take your 5 and 6 year old. But I've had my, sorry points with that. So anyway, 5 or 6 years old, and there's no cap. So a lot of my teachers are like 18, 20 years old because they were in it with me. But then like a lot of my staff will still perform in the show because I don't feel like there's an age limit. We had some adults that wanted to get involved, which we're really excited about. But last year with the whole, I don't know if you knew much, I'm sure you did, about the Larry Nasser thing with gymnastics, and it's like he was the USAG gymnastics
oh yeah, yeah,
official.
yeah. No, the whole doctor crazy,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Right.
because of that, the United States Gymnastics Federation also spilled out into the YMCA and probably in wrestling and everything else. Like we're all trying to avoid that, obviously. So
Yeah.
now I can't have like adults in my program at the same time as children, which is understandable.
Okay.
And I have a lot of adults that are interested. So I may have to start like a special program for grown-ups and a separate one for kids. But right now it's prior to that there was no age limit. But now I'm kind of having a cap off at like 18, or if you were with me when you were 5, you can still work with me when you're 20 because we have a history. You're not just some random weird 20-year-old
Sure,
who wants
sure,
to be
sure.
around 5-year-olds. So
Right.
it's weird, and we have to follow the YMCA, USA guidelines, and pretty much all Larry fault,
No,
but
I'm trying
it's
to think
fine.
of other things that have to do with circus. Are people like like swallowing flaming swords and like
So I did learn how to eat fire.
okay.
And, you know, a couple of my older staff in private, we've learned, and we'd love to showcase it at the Y. But you have that whole like kids think you're cool and they see you do it and they try to do it at home. So
Yeah, right.
we kind of, we don't really showcase that. So, but we do a lot of really tricky stuff. We start with little stilts, and as you did some construction with your mom, you said, you know, the like drywall stilts.
Yep. I've
Okay.
never owned drywall stilts, but I've seen guys on them. Yep.
Yeah, so my kids that have been in it for years, I train them up to that, and I make them some giant pants on my sewing machine,
Yeah,
and they
right,
learn to
right.
walk. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
cool, you know. But like, you have to train and progress and be with me, and we have to be safe. And if you stay with me long enough, you know, I teach them just whatever they have the potential to be.
Yeah, no, I think it's neat. And I see more of like what you're talking about, like in different places. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a lot of that everywhere. There
there
has
is.
to be more facilities that are training people than,
There is.
okay,
So when we go to our gymnastics meets, uh, which is also part of the Y, we kind of go up towards your neck of the woods. There's not a lot here.
right.
So we're up north a lot. And it's funny. So we'll be at a gymnastics meet and I'll look up and I'll see like they have these silks and like a lot of my equipment attached to the ceiling. So I tied up. So I know they're doing it maybe on the weekend. So it's getting a little more mainstream,
Yeah.
cool, and you'll see it more in commercials or like even at a bar, like a you know, a concert. But
Okay.
that's when I get into the whole like if I have my people and we're talking, I'm like, hey, let's learn safety so you don't end up like that girl that I saw plummet onto her neck. And then
Yeah, right.
I'm not trying to, if I was responsible for someone ending up, you know, with a spinal cord injury, especially with my other line of work, I just, so it conflicts, but safety, 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 safety.
Yeah, right. No, I hear you. And it just like, yeah, it's such a weird blend saying safety and then like, let's hang upside down and
I
look.
know I'm an enigma for sure.
Yes. Uh, the fabric thing, the silks or whatever that is,
Yeah,
that's some pretty amazing looking stuff as far as that goes. Like I've seen
it's cool.
some Circus Olay kind of stuff that it is really
Yeah.
artistic. It's
It takes a lot of upper body strength. So
yeah,
if
I
kids
bet.
come to me and they haven't done anything before, the ones that do well are swimmers because they have a lot of upper body strength, and gymnasts. And honestly, swimmers usually have better upper body strength.
Really
So
been a gymnast. Wow.
weird, yeah. So the average person, adult or child, that first hangs on that, they it looks so easy and beautiful, and they get on there and they literally can't even hold
Yeah,
themselves.
right.
Yeah, so and grip strength plays a big part. So my youngest is pretty self-taught with that, and her stuff's amazing. So because I didn't have that when I was at ISU, so I bought it, and I know what safety's all about and mats, but I didn't have time to just like research it because I'm running a whole circus and working full time at the hospital, and she just self-trained herself. So basically, with her, it was more like reeling in of like, let's take this apart, make sure it's not unsafe, and
Yeah.
after that, like sky's the limit. And so she's 16 and she works for me now, and she's, you know, she knows more than I do about
Yeah, no, it's great that it's a family thing and you guys
it.
can do it all together and everything else. I mean, like you said, there you did the thing where you got to perform. Do you're down you said by Western Illinois. ISU's not that far from you then.
It's about a little under 2 hours. So
Okay.
I usually try to take a handful of my kids to their show, which is also in the spring, which also would have been this weekend. And so I've taken my kids in the past so they can get, you know, big ideas and creative minds because that show has changed a lot. After I graduated, my coach retired and he was amazing and so talented and safety first, and it's like, how are we going to replace him? So they got a fella from down in Florida through Florida State, and he had a background in professional circus, which is common in Florida because remember that's where a lot of circus families winter.
Right.
And so then he brought in this whole like professional flair where it's like the costumes changed, and the usually, America hasn't changed that much, but usually the girls that surround the act. So you have the big act performing, and then you have the girls on the side, like doing choreography, just to
Okay.
keep things interesting. So Gamify at ISU has changed a lot since he's came around. Just it's a little different flair, and
Yeah.
it's all for the good. So we try to go to that because you need your creative juices to flow.
Now, some of your little guys, do they plan to like? Do you get anyone that comes across that's like talented? Like, wow, you could.
Oh yeah, yeah. And my hardest part, and that's the same thing with my youngest, because she's super duper duper bright, and this girl is headed to med school, and like she just pulled me aside before this podcast and was like, "So, what do you think about me trying to do Cirque du Soleil just for a couple years before college?" And I'm like, the mother in me is like, "No, you need to go to med school."
Yeah, no,
Like
but
you're so smart, and also I don't want you to get hurt like your sister, even though her sister didn't get hurt in my program, but I know I don't want you to,
yeah,
like, I want you to, you're so talented and you could like do great things, but I'm a mom and I don't want you to get hurt. So
yeah, but I mean, you only get that one
I
chance.
know, I know, I
And
know. And the
so,
thing,
so there's
yeah,
a parallel with the wrestling, but it's not really the same. Um, some wrestlers go into fighting, right? So like I used to
right,
get in my fair share of scuffles, and I don't want that for my sons at all. So like there's a
right. But
lot of
you could see why they want to do it because you wanted to do it.
no, 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 no. I don't want right. I don't want them. I don't want any part of no fighting. Uh, so but so like that's kind of a natural thing for a wrestler, right? You're pretty much in a scuffle when you're wrestling. So like
Yeah,
there's a lot of UFC fighters and stuff like that. I don't really want any part of it. If my sons came to me and said, "Dad, I've got my degree in my back pocket. I'd like to go see what this is like," then
right,
I would be fine with it.
right,
I would help them in any way I could to help them train, but I would prefer that they never did because
right,
it's just not, you get your brain rattled. It's just,
right.
I don't know. I kind of equate it to if my daughter would have been on a stripper pole. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
But at least you wouldn't damage your brain doing that.
well, I guess, very well.
I know.
You
I
know,
know. And when you've already dealt with a spinal cord injury or brain injury as an adult, or knowing someone that did, you're like,
yeah,
you want to put them in this little bubble. So I'm trying not to do that with her because her sister's injury isn't her injury.
yeah, right.
In reality, it's a possibility. So we'll see what happens. But uh, I'm like, maybe she could go to Illinois State and do that's a little like smaller scale.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know, the Circus Soleil thing, it's pretty neat looking. And
Cool.
can someone make any money doing that?
So yeah, I think so. I think there's plenty of people and they have many troops now. And so so in Macomb, we have some special gifts that the university brings a lot of like international and national talent from places where we wouldn't have. So I started the program in 2011, and it was just me, and I learned how to rig in college, like a little bit. But as I grew, I needed, higher level rigging and safety. So I had to pay an old friend from college to come down to rig my first trapeze. And I didn't have much to pay him. And he mostly did it like just out of the goodness of his heart. Well, then I needed more and more and more. So anyway, this family moves here from Vegas, and she becomes the director of the gymnastics program at the Y. So we're coworkers, we're friends. She's coaching my kids, and I come to find out her husband is hired at Western Illinois University as a technical director. Anyway, he runs all the backstage stuff for the theater. This guy has rigged for Cirque du Soleil, and I'm
Okay.
like, I need him. So
Yeah.
he comes almost pro bono, and he rigs my stuff and he checks it once a year. And so I couldn't even have grown without that.
Now, couldn't your daughter, I don't know what the age is like for that. What would be the problem with her doing all of her school, medical school, and then doing that for a couple of years before she actually went into the profession of
I
medical?
mean, yeah, but med school takes a lot of years. And I'm just a physical therapist assistant,
Yeah.
which is like low man on the totem pole. And well, of course, I went back for that after I was a single mom of three, so that played a part. But even the littlest of med school, I think is hard. You got to memorize the law and understand the
Yeah.
human body. And so, if when she decides to do that, she's got to focus on that. So I don't know. She's 16, going on 17. We'll figure it out. But like, I'm very there with her. Like, I know what it's like to try to like get your profession and be able to pay your bills. And then like I'm very theatrical. So I don't know. I have to
Yeah,
balance
no,
it
it's a
out.
tough one for sure. I mean, my sons are, they're like science and math is their thing, right? They want to be engineers, and then the wrestling. So it's and the wrestling is, my daughter was a gymnast and the boys are wrestlers. Both of those things take such a dedication to do. And with the wrestling, with the boys, they're in the biggest class in the state of Illinois. Illinois has some of the best wrestling in the country. It's highly, highly competitive. Um, they don't have time really for anything else, but I wish
Right,
they did. And if they did,
right,
like I've said to them, I wish you could be in like a play or like you played an
right.
instrument or
But then
some,
like when you want to become an engineer, you also don't have time for anything else. So I
but
think there comes a time when they have to make a choice. But like hopefully they'll be old enough to make that choice for themselves and we can like guide them a little. But then you don't want them having regret either. So it's hard.
no, and I think some of it's too much right brain. Like you're doing everything that's very by the numbers and analytical and all this other stuff, where the circus stuff and stuff like that and performing, that's very left
Yeah.
brain, where you're like,
Yeah, I don't,
creative.
this youngest child, I honestly don't know where she came from. She's a very right brain, and then her left brain is
Yeah,
like
right,
it's
right,
crazy.
right, right.
I don't know. She's got both, so we'll see what happens to her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's terrific. My tank just went off. It got late, I guess.
That's
Uh,
cool.
yeah, well, it's nighttime. But
Bedtime.
yeah. So yeah, okay. So yeah, with the daughter thing, that's definitely a tough situation because I wouldn't know what to do with that. My daughter is done with gymnastics. She's just in college, and that's it. She, didn't want to do. She still coaches at
That's
the
good.
private place,
I
but
think that's an outlet. And that's an outlet for my older daughters. Like when you can't do it, but you love it, you miss it. If you can teach it a little.
yeah, right, for sure. Uh, so okay, so what else goes on in circus? You got trapeze, you got the stilts, you got the
Mhm.
silks, you said
Yep.
something about a teeter board. Does someone like get catapulted?
Yeah, we don't have a teeter board. We had teeter board at Illinois State. So to train that and safely do it, I'd have to have a belt system and a rig overhead, and the person on the other end would be me, and I don't think I weigh enough for some of these kids, so we're not
Right.
there. But we have a lot of aerial acts, so some of them you won't be familiar with the terms. There's a lyrical hoop. We have like four of them. So there's a steel hoop on a swivel, and it can rotate low or high off the ground. We try not to go too high. And they just do acrobatics within the hoop.
Okay.
We have my old high cradle from college, which is like attaches to the ceiling, and your partner hangs from their knees upside down. And then you hold your partner's wrists, and your partner becomes kind of like a virtual trapeze. So, my older daughter, Jessie, who's the one that had the concussion, and two of her best friends have become three of my like core staff. So these girls, after, well, actually, in the end of their high school career, they're all freshmen in college right now. They got into powerlifting, and Jessie got into
I
powerlifting
saw
because,
that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, because of her brain injury, she couldn't do gymnastics and cheerleading, and she needed an outlet physically. And powerlifting did not bother her symptoms.
Wow.
So
I would almost think that that much pressure,
yes, I
worried
know.
about that,
I
right?
think she has her lightheaded days that she doesn't let on about, but she has to have an outlet. So they're very strong. So one of them will hang and they will train all my little athletes upside down.
Okay.
And so you're just doing like flips and tricks like you would on a trapeze, only it's on another human. So the crowd, that's a big crowd pleaser. And like
Yeah.
we have rings like the men have in gymnastics, and we do
Okay.
that. We have a rope. Couple of those are, it's called a cloud swing. It's kind of like a trapeze, but it's a rope. I mean, it's just lots of aerial stuff, and they're
Yes.
very popular. Not sure why, but it's good exercise for the kids. Makeshift tightrope. juggling. We do clowning.
Nice.
That's actually more of a challenge because if it's not funny, the crowd's not interested. So
Sure.
Juliet, who's my youngest, she's really good at that, strangely enough. So I kind of put her in charge of the clowns. I don't know. We teach them to walk on like logs and barrels and like globes and just like it's just endless. And
Nice, nice. No trampoline type stuff or anything like
we
that?
do a mini tramp. It's
Okay.
like a small trampoline set up like a kind of like the springboard for gymnastics with a crash mat. And the kids, it's a big favorite of the kids, but also a bit, any trampoline's dangerous. So it's a nail biter for me because it's
Yeah.
cool, it's fun. Crowd loves it, but try not to break anyone's neck. So Jesse's also in charge of that, and she's the one that has had the concussion, and so she's really conservative with what she lets him do. And so we have that too. Yeah.
Boy, that's all going to take a massive amount of your time. I mean,
Well,
you work a full-time job as a therapist, and then this also. What kind of hours a week are you putting into the circus?
so my husband isn't the biggest fan because it's a very big time sucker of
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and so like we do Friday nights a couple hours and then Sundays a couple hours, but like my time at home is a lot. But it's for me it's I don't know, it's a passion. So I sneak away and spend a lot of time on it. I make the costumes myself, but that's one of my first loves. So it's like a labor of love,
Yeah, right. No,
you know?
I'm glad that the Y is good about putting you guys up for, for
Yeah.
your practices and stuff like that. I did gymnastics and it was like, wasn't the Y, it was the park district or something like
Hmm.
that. So like there were the kids that were in the private stuff and then there was us who were just, we had just the mats on the floor. Like,
Yeah.
I want to say that we had, for the guys, you got the parallel bars and then
Uh,
the pommel horse and the floor routine stuff and everything else.
hmm.
Is that the only three for guys?
Guys have six,
Oh,
so they
do
have
they?
more than
Oh,
girls. So well, you're onto it though. They have parallel bars, they have Florex, on the horse, rings.
the vault.
Yeah, but there's one more that we're both missing. I don't even know what it is. They have, I don't know, they have like a tumbling strip and then the Florex. Maybe that's two.
Right. Okay.
It's a lot.
Right. Okay. We watch in the Olympics, but
Hmm.
that's for my
Right.
daughter. That was the pinnacle of things to watch was
Yeah.
in the Olympics. Now, how is you said there's not a great amount of gymnastics like available there? There's no private.
Right.
Are there no
There's
private parks?
none of the high schools have it here. I guess Macomb had it years ago before we moved here. There's no private club. All there is the Y, and most of the team girls only get to practice twice a week. And I think in Chicago, like when I was there, we'd practice like 4 or 5 days a week. So it's hard when we go to meets because it's hard for us to measure up. We don't have the money. This town doesn't have a lot of money, so we don't have the equipment. And our coaching staff tends to rotate. We get like college kids that have a gymnastics background and they'll be really good, but we lose them after 4 years. So I always tell the girls, like, considering that, if you're halfway up the podium, considering that,
Yeah, no, it's pretty good, right?
fine. And really just you look at yourself and you want to improve next year against yourself. So
Sure.
we've kind of gotten over that.
I think it's difficult for all the small towns. The wrestling is set up in three classes, and it's amazing how much different so there's 3A, 2A, and 1A. Like the 1A wrestlers, there's some good guys there, but for the most part, they're terrible compared to the 3A kids.
Right.
And it's really just all the advantages that the 3A kids have with
That
all
plays a big.
the right private coaching and all the facilities and everything else that they have. And I mean, I'm sure that a lot of those 1A schools, they're just got a closet, they're dragging the mats out and they're practicing on them, and then putting everything back where these guys, my sons don't have the greatest wrestling room, but there's some schools that we go to that I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like, Illinois Central had a beautiful, it was the gymnastics was,
Yeah.
it was a real nice wrestling room.
Yeah.
So like, there is a big difference there. And it's a shame that in our country, we don't focus more on that stuff because that's the important stuff in life anyway. Like those are the things that the kids that work with you identify as circus kids.
Right. And like they're so proud. And I
Yeah.
have every year when it's time for our show, I have one or two that tag, grab on my shirt and say like they're not sure they really want to go out in front of all these people and perform because not everyone's cut out for that, right? Maybe you signed up because my program looked fun, but you didn't know you were going to go out in front of 400 people in 3 months. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's fine. Like, you don't have to. You stay backstage with me and you can be my assistant.
Yeah.
And then I say, if you change your mind, then you go. And I've never had one not change their mind. Like every time they like see the spotlights and their friends, and then the crowd's going crazy, and they just go. So, and that's fine if they don't, but I've never had them stay backstage, even the
Right.
ones that are so scared. So their confidence just like,
Now for you, it's got to be the first time that I taught a kid a wrestling move, and then he went out and he used that move in a match, and it like won him the match or like that. It was like I'll
great.
never forget it. It was one of the more memorable parts of my life, as far as like wow,
Mhm.
that really
Yep.
felt good that I taught that kid that. I'm pretty sure that that kid will never forget. The,
Right.
and for me, it's interesting to go to a high school tournament or meet and see this guy who's like 17, 18 years old now. He's like, hey, coach, you know,
They remember.
right? I was coaching when he was 8 years old, so like it's amazing. It's fun. I don't know. Like I tell my sons, like they've never been the guys that were ever hard to get to practice, or like I've never had a time where they're like bummed. They're excited to go to practice. They're bummed if they don't have practice.
Right.
That sort of thing. It's always been their thing, not mine. But like we get some guys that are like, I'm not sure if my senior year I want to do this, or
Right.
I look at them like, listen, someday you're going to be at a job, you're going to do something amazing. You're going to look around and nobody's going to cheer. Like,
Hmm.
take advantage of that now.
Well, you
Because,
can, yeah.
yeah,
I
because
have the ones that phase themselves out, which is fine. Like, because in high school, you kind of, if you stay in my program, it's not a school program. So
yeah,
you want to be part of the school. And so I lose a lot of them at that level, which is fine. But still, when I run into them at the store, they like hug me and they want to talk about it. So it's a good memory. And that's really all that matters.
yeah, no,
Building character, self-esteem, self-worth, like sweat equity, because it's not just about being a showman and getting the applause. Like you show up, you drag all this crap out, you work hard, you put it away, and like maybe once or twice a year you get a ton of applause, and that's pretty cool. But it's not just about.
right. And we both live in Illinois, so we're in a state that has a college that has it, along with Florida. If you were like in Nebraska or California, and you were telling somebody what you're doing, they got to look. I mean, most people you
Oh
talk
yeah.
to this about have to be like, what?
Well, my parents the first time they were like, "We're paying for you to what?" You know.
Yeah,
But honestly, they're my biggest fans, and they were my biggest fans through college, and they were glad when I got my degree that I could actually work with. And then I worked and I got married and I had kids, and like Circus just didn't even, nobody talked about it. And then when I was 40, 41, 42, I don't know, just all the cards came together, and I was like, I'm in a place where I could start this in this little town. And oh boy, everyone was like, oh no.
yeah, right.
But we did it, and I don't know, it's special to me. It's a lot of work outside of work, but it's just I don't know what they say, like I don't know, it's from the heart.
Yeah, is there a website or a link or something that I could post?
There is the McDonough County YMCA has a website, and they talk about circus on there. And then I have the YMCA Circus Academy Facebook page, has some stuff. We're trying to get out there, but
Yeah, so I mean,
it's out there.
some of the videos and pictures you posted are awesome, like super cool looking.
Cool
Um,
stuff.
yeah, if there was something, if you could get that to me, like shoot me a link or something like that, I'll put it on
Yeah.
the podcast because people should see it. Generally, when I do the podcast, I would edit in that kind of stuff, put a couple little videos or
Mhm.
links or something like that so they could see them. And now we're doing the remote thing. Um, how is it like, so you can't have your show. Are you doing anything Zoom wise or any practices with?
Right. So, because we're sheltered at home, so I work for the hospital, but the rest of my family is sheltered at home, and my two girls are here, and they're my staff. So we can still kind of do stuff without breaking any rules at home. So we've been doing since we sheltered at home Friday at the same time when we would normally have practice, and Sunday at the same time when we normally would have practice. We would spend Facebook living.
Okay.
uh, we call it like Circus Live or something. And we don't have the trapeze and everything in our basement, but we're just trying to we'll teach them to juggle, and we'll get
Yeah.
our hoops out, and we'll just try to hand balancing, like anything to keep them moving so they're not just becoming total slugs. And then to just kind of stay connected, like we miss you, we haven't forgotten about you. So we're
Yeah.
trying to do that.
Yeah.
And it gets old. Like Sunday, we took a break Sunday for Easter. Friday, we were on, and I start with talking, and I was like, okay, so here we are still doing, shelter at home, Facebook Live. And I'm like, this is our fourth week. Like, I don't even know what week. And
Right.
it's been a month. So
Yes. No, it's crazy. It's crazy. Now, hopefully, I think we're working towards, getting things back open again and everything else. Seeing you're in a real rural area, you probably aren't in very much danger as far as that. You're not on top of each other. It seems
right,
like the places that the more dense the population, the more trouble that they're in as far as that goes, because it's contagious
right.
in a way. Uh, did you see the story about that plant in North Dakota or something like that? That somebody had it, went to work, and I think there's 500 or 700 positives that came out of the one plant.
It's insane. So the
Right.
hospital last year reassigned me to a supportive living center. It's kind of like a nursing home, but it's like
Yeah.
not quite.
Right.
And I love it. But so I have that very real reality of like, if I come in contact with somebody that has it, but I'm not sick yet, I don't want to wipe out 80 people.
Oh wow.
And
Right.
these people are like my family. So we're rural. We only have 3 cases right now, but it's looming. I don't know. But I just stopped at the Y tonight before the podcast to gather some supplies to try to do some Circus Live stuff in lieu of our show.
Yeah.
And I just only got to interact with one employee because we're all trying to keep our distance.
Yep.
And of course, and they're in touch with the YMCA of USA, and nobody knows when we can start back. And when we do, we'll just be 10 people at a time are allowed in. Like nobody knows. So in my program, it's like wrestling. We touch each other a lot.
Right.
Right? So we also do acro sport, which is like we build pyramids on each other, and or at the very least, if you're in the trapeze, I'm touching you. So
Yeah, right.
we're probably going to be the last ones that get to go back because we're too touchy.
Yeah, it's too touchy. And then also, anything that draws a crowd, I really don't know how they're going to do that. Um, the way that this is contagious, if you were sitting in a crowd with a couple thousand people or a couple hundred people,
I know.
people
I
are
know.
I want this to be over with in the worst way. I really do.
Right.
It's so I can't believe there's no Major League Baseball, no football, none of this stuff is going on.
Yeah.
It's insane. All these athletes that I was lucky enough to coach a kid who was this natural, and he just stepped on the mat and he won matches, and he's won maybe 15 national titles, and he's only 11 or 12 years old. He's a little guy.
Wow.
So he was going to be, I think, the first 5-time youth state champion. He would have walked away with it. He just beats, he maybe gets that one match a year that's a tough match, but everything else is nothing. And they canceled the state tournament for him this year. Now, if they don't have one next year, I guess I'm saying that guy's a big deal, but you know what? It's all of them. They all sweat their guts out trying to be as good as they can, and now it's not there. So I don't know, it's a strange thing for a guy who spent so much time it's got to be strange for you too, because like it's your life.
And it's over. It's just like,
Yes, right now it's not going on. We're all living without something that I would never say that we would thought it was the most important thing, but it was an essential thing for us
right.
to do.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't think my sons would be who they are if they didn't have wrestling. Like it
Right.
defines them. Uh, and in your small town, the impact you've got to be having, it's got to be huge. That if 2 years or a year and a half went by where you didn't get to do this, there'd be a whole generation of kids there that didn't get to participate in this.
Yeah, it's a kind of program where I don't know if it would survive or come back. But then I'm like, I see people in the healthcare field in like New York, and I'm watching them, and they have very real problems. Like they don't have time to get a sip of water to go to the bathroom. So they come out of one room and they don and doff their PPE, and then the alarms are going off, and they go in the next room and someone's coding, and I'm like crying over here because I can't go to the Y. So
Right. Well,
try to keep it in perspective, but I think it's hard for everyone. It's hard for those that are dealing with it, and it's hard for those that aren't dealing with it and trying to understand why they have to give it all up and stay home.
right. Uh, so yeah, right, we're like that small stuff, but being a small town, it's got to be I keep getting stuff to pop up here in front of me. Hold on, sorry. It's got to be a big impact not to have it. So I hope that everything goes back, and hopefully, being in a small town, you get back to it before the bigger towns do, because the
Yeah, we might.
school thing I just don't understand either. They were saying on the news today that they're going to start phasing people back into stuff, and in phase one they were opening schools. And I'm like, Lincoln Way has like 3,000 kids. Right. How are you going to do this? And it's a petri dish. I mean, I
Right.
coach wrestling in a wheelchair, and I've got a group of like 30 kids around me. Every single one of them touches me and touches the chair.
Right.
Like,
and they're like coughing.
yeah,
And
they just took their finger out of their nose and put it on my wheelchair. So
right.
like it is gross to begin with.
Right. But normally it doesn't make you die.
I don't even care. Right. I don't even care.
Right. But now you're like, crap.
Right. It's the craziest thing in the world. So I hope things get back to normal, because it is definitely not. It's not good for my work. It's not nothing has been good for this at all. But I don't know, anything else that you can add, because we can or anything else you want to ask me.
I didn't get to ask how your injury happened.
So 17 years ago now, it was in March 25th. I went, before that, I went on a fishing trip with a guy, and the roofer he was using, the roofs were leaking, right? He's another general contractor. He didn't do roofing, but we did. So I'm like, yeah, no problem. We'll start roofing your places. So he called us up. We came out to roof his job, a house he was building in Piatone. We set up scaffolding like we always do. The scaffolding that we set up is not like what you see in the cities. It's not this like two sides with a board in between. It's two ladders with a 24-foot piece of aluminum that we stand on. And yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, I've stood on that at 35 feet in the air before with nothing tied on. Like, I just walked on that stuff. I had great balance. I mean,
Right.
like, no problem. Was an
Right.
athlete. So that's one of the things with the circus and gymnastics. I always felt other athletes, whether it be a football player or wrestler, they should do a little bit of that, because body awareness
Yes.
for where you're at and everything else.
Right.
When you're in a fast scramble in a wrestling match, you got to know which way's up all the time. And you got to
Right.
get that from flipping and tumbling and everything else.
Yes.
So anyways, I'm out on the edge of this scaffold. I have a nail gun in my hand. I'm putting roofing down. We're on the scaffolding until we get enough roofing on the roof that we can get onto the roof. And we had about 400 pounds of shingles on the other end of the scaffold. And I have 1 foot on the scaffold and 1 foot on the roof, because I'm trying to reach as far as I can to put as much down as I can, so you don't got to move the scaffolding. And the other side collapsed. And it was like a teeter-totter. It threw my feet over my head, and I dove into the ground. Now, you said when that accident happened, with the young lady in
Yeah.
celiac eternity, same for me. I was trying to right myself forever while I was upside down.
Yeah.
So finally, at the last minute, I couldn't right myself. I was diving. Last second, I threw my hands up. I was going to catch the earth from hitting me in the face. Turns out the earth is very heavy. And I had my neck snap back, and I broke C6, C7. So my hands were paralyzed from my chest down, and I was in a medically induced coma. I was 195, 6 foot tall, could bench press 300 pounds when I went into the coma. I woke up, I was 158 and still 6 foot tall, and couldn't bench press my arms. So 21 days in a coma they put me in.
Wow.
Pretty much all the muscle on you just melts away. Like
Right.
I look like someone that just got out of a prison camp, like
Mm-hmm.
Auschwitz or something like that. And when I started lifting weights, the therapist, the very first weightlifting she had me do was she put my arm in a sling that was attached to the roof, the ceiling, and I just did this. No weight.
Mm-hmm.
So I just woke up. So for me, it was like a week ago. I was in the gym bench pressing 300 pounds.
You're like, what's happened?
Right now, this is my workout. And I'm looking at the therapist going, you've got to be kidding me. I'm never going to get anywhere like this. And it's crazy how you build things in your life with your body. It took me years and years and years to bench press 300 pounds, but I had to start from like zero. Like, the muscle atrophied so bad off me when they first sat me up. Besides the blood pressure thing where I would pass out when every time they sat me up, I'd go blind and deaf and then be out. And lay back down and wake up. My left shoulder would fall out of the socket because it just had nothing, no muscle to hold it all in there and everything else. So, like I said, I built my one side back pretty good. Like I can take a 45-pound dumbbell now and press that, a dozen times over my head. But my left side, so it's still asleep, so I don't have triceps on that side. So
does it stay in socket now?
Oh, yeah, it stays in socket now and everything else.
That's good.
I can go and I can, I push myself around a manual chair for 10 miles at a time.
Some stroke patients have sublux permanently, so that's good.
Right. No, it's good.
That's good that
they were taping it up there for the longest time to keep it in there.
That's good.
And I was just working it out as much as I could. It's a crazy way of living life. It is. It's 17 years now. So I'm 48. That's more than a third of my life or whatever it is there. Or a fourth of my life, or a third of my life. So everything is different. Everything is 100%. Like, I was 6 foot tall, now I'm 4'6". So, that's different. Just every morning for me is a wrestling match getting dressed. People don't take it.
They take it for granted.
They really do. Try laying on a bed, not using your body. I have to roll back and forth to get my pants on.
Right.
I have no grabbers. So
right. But it's an effort.
Right. Well, I'm not giving up on.
Right.
My life is not. I'm not trying to be the best guy in a wheelchair. I'm not look at me, I'm the best quadriplegic running around. I'm trying to be the best guy still. So, that's the way to do it. I don't skip a beat with anything. I'm a real estate broker, a general contractor, wrestling coach. I do the podcast. So I'm positive that I had HD or ADHD or whatever.
Right.
Because I have way too much energy. And my energy level when I was younger got me in trouble. I was looking for trouble all the time. I needed excitement all the time. So, my son, both of them were hyper or whatever like that. But the one was the kid in school that had to sit on the bouncy ball and because he was constantly moving and everything else. So wrestling was the outlet. If we don't get these things back online, even Circus and all that stuff.
Oh yeah. We get a lot of those kids.
Right.
And there's been one or two where I've had to either say I'm going to have to kick your child out, which I don't want to do, or he needs a one-on-one and I can't supply that. So, and I've had parents say, we want them in here, so we'll stay with them. And it's fine.
Yeah.
But like that's where they belong, because they're not going to fit in any traditional sport. They belong in my program, but like I can't. I got a lot of ducklings that I got to keep track of.
Yeah.
So but it's perfect. Like they can jump on the trampoline and they can go walk on the stilts, and it's like bleh. It's like they belong there, but I still need a little structure, like somewhere.
Right. How many people do you have in there at a time?
Students.
Yes.
So, well, right when we closed, we had like maybe 25 on Friday. And then Sunday we have two classes. So I think we have like 24 in one class and maybe 11 in another. So you put them all together, it's a lot for a show, a lot, and they're very active. And then like, that's fine for me if they're like busy and active, but a lot of the things they can play on, they could hurt themselves or die. So then you're like, okay, we have to either follow the rules or have enough teachers, because I'm not trying to have someone break their neck,
Right.
But it's a good place for kids that can't like do the same thing for very long.
Right. No.
Perfect for ADD. Not trying to get any extras that have ADD, but
No, but I mean, so is for my boys, the reason that wrestling was such a good fit was, well, I knew that they would be like rough and tumble kind of guys. If they had anything to do with me, they'd be like, I always felt like, and I've said this a couple of times on podcasts, I always felt like if I didn't get tackled or knocked down or like something once a month, I felt like something was wrong. So like I boxed as a hobby. I mean, it seems like people are weird. They see something on TV and they don't realize that the guy getting hit in the face, that hurts. Like,
yeah.
And he's got like the soft glove on. It's not. So essentially in boxing, you're practicing punching like for a month and a half, and then you hit somebody. You're really good at it after practicing for a month and a half. So like if I would go out to a bar and get punched by a guy who had been practicing for a month and a half, it almost makes you laugh, because it's like, you really suck at that.
Really slow.
Right, you're slow, no head movement. I'm going to hit you and you're going to fall down because I've been practicing for a month and a half to punch things. But the workout is intense. And that's what was good for my boys, right? To have this intense workout.
Energy
How are the
outlet.
practices for Circus? Are you guys really hardcore workout, or?
So it's kind of a balance. So we've implemented conditioning, which nobody likes, but we implemented that after we went to that St. Louis event where we saw that tragedy. We were just like, what can we do to prevent this? So we need to cut out tricks that are deadly.
Yep.
There's a good idea. Always use a mat. There's a good idea, which we were already doing. And then like conditioning, because a new child comes in, and I mean, any active child comes in and they see 13 things hanging in the air and 20 things to jump on, and but they don't know what they're doing. So, right? So you have to pass certain levels before you're allowed to walk on this giant sphere. You have to walk on a tube that only goes forward and back, where the sphere goes in every direction. You know what I mean? And before I let you 6 feet in the air on a trapeze, if you can't get up there without me hoisting you up there, you don't belong up there.
Right.
And so that's very frustrating to a kid that comes, especially if they're a little out of shape. They're like, well, just put me up there. I'm like, no. So then 6 weeks later, they're like, they might quit, because if they can't get up there in 2 weeks, they don't want to. But if they can't get up there, they can't safely save themselves up there. So
now, so here's a real weird question. That we have an obesity problem in this country as it is, but I have always felt that the people that I met that were country, really rural, there's even more of that going on. The diets are really bad.
So our kids that grew up on farms here are in excellent shape, but we have a lot of kids that are here scholastically with their parents professionally are professors, and they make a good income. It's a totally different population, so they're not necessarily in good shape. And so if you're heavy, heck, I'm 5'1" and 5 pounds overweight, and I can't hoist myself up like I used to. 5 pounds. So
Right.
if you're more than 5 pounds overweight, you try to pull yourself up inverted on any kind of thing suspended from the ceiling, and it's hard.
Sure.
So yeah, I can get them up there, but then they don't have the strength to save themselves.
Right. Right.
So if they've got some sweat equity, and it weans them out. There's some that just kind of drop out because it's too much work. And it's sad, but sorry, it's safety.
Yeah, no, for sure. My
Yeah.
guys, like for safety, like I have them do like a lot of neck exercises and stuff like that. So like
Hmm.
we have like a strap that goes on their head and they're
Right.
lifting weight with their head. I don't want a broken neck in the family. I've already got one. I don't need
Right.
another one. And then for them, it's advantageous, not safety wise, but just competitive wise. Hand strength is super, super.
Right. So
So
for us, like these kids are young, so I don't usually, we don't weight train them. But just climbing on the silk or just your first day, just I might tie a knot. So you get to stand on it, but you still have to hold yourself. So your grip strength will improve slowly. We try to teach them how to fall, which
yeah.
sometimes you're not going to have time to fall right, and that's where we try to take out tricks where that's an issue. But if a trick that's not too advanced, you're gonna have time to at least chuck your head, and you have a nice crash mat. But
I would think you guys
all
have a decent amount of kids that just want to learn how to juggle.
I mean, no, nobody. Boys are good at juggling. Dads are good at. There's a lot of dads that secretly know how to juggle. I think
Right.
it's like a guy thing or something. So we teach juggling on our Circus Live, and my joke is like I'm really good at teaching juggling, but I'm not that good at juggling. So
Okay.
my son can juggle. He's 22, and I taught him once on spring break, my meager skills. And then he was like 12, and we were on spring break, and he had nothing else to do. So he practiced for a week, and now he's awesome. So it's eye-hand coordination. So no, it's not for everybody, and it's tedious. Like the unicycle is probably the hardest thing. Trapeze is easier than unicycle.
You know, yeah, my
Unicycle,
boys, one boy got a unicycle, and I don't know if he ever rode it. I don't know if he.
yeah, because it's like learning to play the piano or sewing. Like it's super frustrating. And you've got to just keep at it for months, and then you'll get it. But most people are like, I'm not good at it. I'm out of here.
Gave up. Right. I probably would have got hurt if I even tried. But all right, well, I appreciate your time, and it was interesting.
Fun.
Make sure you get me some links so I can send some to
Yeah.
the right spot, and then what you call it, maybe a couple years on the line you can stop by and we'll actually have a chit chat in person.
Sounds good.
Sure,
Thanks.
thanks. I appreciate you
That's
coming on.
fun.
Anybody watching this, if you'd please, I'm always looking for subscribers, so I forget
Oh,
to pander to the subscribers, but please subscribe. And if you saw the video, you enjoyed it, if you have any questions, I'll gladly pass them on. So comment below, below the video. Otherwise, thanks again. Good luck.
bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.